This is the moment CNC Inlays really shine. Getting here takes some specialized knowledge. If you want to amaze your friends and clients, come along, see the process and the mistakes. Despite the look on my face, everything about this project is totally achievable. I'll take you through the rough patches so we smooth out your road to success. Creating an inlay requires V-carving a female portion into a main board, followed by creating a male plug, then faced off to reveal the combined project. We have a tremendous video covering the basics of that. It provides the foundation for this project and is a good pairing to everything you're about to see in this video. You have almost endless options when it comes to getting your design into the computer. You need to choose the right program. Whatever you're comfortable with is the right thing. For me, I tend to operate in Carbide Create quite a bit. I'll also use some Illustrator and Photoshop. But those programs tend to yield a few too many nodes when it comes to trying to get a clean, simple design. Even the trace feature in Create can produce too many nodes. Many times I find myself just using hand tracing inside of Create by importing a photo and then putting the lines that I want over that image. Surprisingly, this method ends up being a lot more time efficient than editing all the lines and nodes off of a computer trace. On this project, I use the trace functionality of Carbide Create, hand tracing, and Midjourney. That's right, AI. Because the world is rapidly making progress toward both the Terminator and Ready Player One, Midjourney or other AI image generators can be handy. Original art in mere seconds. But be careful, you may just waste your life creating pictures of lemurs doing things. With those overlapping elements, if you'd like clean lines, you need your previous plug to overlap your upcoming next plug. So when you cut the female aspect, it cuts into the previous plug and your material change is seamless. On any complex design, there's multitudes of choices to be made with these overlaps. Here, I began with the mountains in the background, then the trees and the road, followed by the car. By utilizing the node editor, I was able to pull every other aspect into the outline of the car, so it will be clean. Overall complexity is controlled by you via the number of color or texture changes desired and the number of overlapping elements in your design. On mine, I played with the different colors and textures to learn on this board. I created several different material plugs, including different types of walnut. My goal on Project 1 is always to explore as many what-ifs as possible. When it came to the overall design, I wanted a perspective drawing with the car in the foreground and the mountains in the background. Those were the easy choices. I then decided I wanted the trees directly on top of the mountains, followed by the road, then the tires, then finally the car itself. And here you might ask, why is there a BMW in the foreground? Well, if you caught our last video, you might know that I just purchased a 1968 BMW 1600 that's on its way to Restomod glory. So you might see some overlapping content in here. Give me about 2 years to complete that project. Now, don't go thinking I simply laid out the design and moved ahead seamlessly. There are a bunch of mistakes that ended up affecting how the board looked at the end. Due to a gluing error, I recut and replaced the right side tree and trunk, which gave me a chance to separate the trunk and the trees as two separate parts. Problem solved, project improved. But I also suffered tear out on that right side tire. After replacing it, you can now see the effect of the order of operations. The left tire is behind the car as planned. The right tire is on top of the car. This is not a huge deal because they are both walnut. However, in contrasting materials, it would have been a deal killer and required major revisions. Overall, you're free to make your design as complex as your mind or experience can handle. Be patient with yourself and push through. You're going to see when the project is finished, those mistakes are not noticeable to the average person. The result ends up getting good reviews despite all the struggles in the middle. When it comes to wood, there are three surfaces: face grain, edge grain, and end grain. Most boards you see in the world are made from face grain or end grain. Edge grain is less popular and a topic for another day. For your materials, face grain is the easiest place to start. Winston has you covered in his video with that face grain project, and I also did a test on this project. I cut most of my parts, testing the overlaps and the look with a face grain sheet. It's the easiest to obtain and terrific to work on for small, basic projects or larger detailed builds. Start there, then move to where our focus is today, end grain. End grain has some serious advantages for carving and in use. Butcher blocks are made from end grain, so that knives and cleavers stay sharp longer. The additional benefit to making an end grain inlay is the level of detail possible. Imagine a pile of spaghetti lying on its side. This is face grain. As fine details are carved into the surface, small pieces are created on that top layer. They have little support and are prone to breakage. But if I flip the spaghetti on end and get a bunch more of it, all of a sudden I have a surface featuring the end of each individual strand. When this surface is carved, the support present for each individual small part is far more substantial. Material resolution goes way up. Now, material resolution is a topic you should dive further into. We have a video all about it because it determines the success or failure of many projects from the simple to the complex. Making an end grain cutting board is a challenge completely outside of CNC. It requires a ton of tooling. But what if you don't have a wood shop? What if you don't have massive time? Can you Amazon your way through this? For part of it, the answer is definitely yes. I ordered 4 boards from Amazon, all of them cheaper than I could possibly make them myself. Even with $10,000 in tools at my disposal, the time involved quickly has my board going well north of the $100 I paid for this end grain maple board, and the $130 for the black walnut. Argue this if you want, but you're losing. If you just like making them, hey, that's fine. This maple board is 2 1/4 inches thick and perfectly manufactured. Order these. I know it hurts your DIY soul. I know. I understand. Now, making plugs can't be avoided, and I spent significant time here. This is why I have to have, at minimum, a table saw, and a planer or drum sander would also be a nice addition. We don't have a fancy table saw in the shop. The minimal work is making sure that the saw is adjusted to exactly 90 degrees. I did this with an aluminum square I've made on Shapeoko. Then I clamped and glued the strips together, finally facing them with the Shapeoko itself. My plug materials were walnut, maple, oak, and bamboo plywood. Yes, hang tight. I'll explain. Walnut and maple are just the best woods, hands down. They look terrific and don't break the bank even at today's prices. You can machine fine details into either one, although hard maple is the best for machining by about 10% over walnut, yet maple can seriously lack character. This is why walnut rules the world. Now, bamboo plywood is perhaps the most interesting item on the list. Both Winston and I have used it for face grain. Will it work on end grain? I don't know, but I'm taking an educated guess. Because plywood is an engineered product, it doesn't swell and change shape like real wood. Bamboo, by its very nature, tends to be inert. This should make it a suitable candidate for inlays. And the grain structure, in air quotes if we want to call it that, has some pretty cool vibes about it. I used it for the road on the bottom of the board. If this board splits, I'd be shocked. Shocked if it was the bamboo that was the culprit. I use 1/8 inch for clearing and a 60-degree total angle V-bit for the edges. As the level of detail goes up, the angle of the Endmills should go down. A 30-degree bit was my next move if I needed more details. When it came to facing, I tried a 1/2 inch upcut, a 1/2 inch downcut, as well as a large fly cutter. After that experimentation, my choice would be a 1/2 inch downcut. It should provide the least amount of stress to the plugs and transitions. I found this out the hard way. It's hard for me to be more disappointed than I am right now. But as I've said on the channel many times, learning and failure are definitely part of your CNC journey. I thought I was in the home stretch, 95% done with the project, but now the board is good from far and far from good. The tire tearing out is kind of the least of my worries. The edges of a bunch of my other plugs, that's my concern. And I think it's related to me not using enough glue. I started out using too much glue, now I think I'm not using enough glue, and consequently when I'm facing off the surface after putting a plug on, it's just tearing out the edges. If my plugs were performing better, if I had better glue and adhesion, I probably could cut back a 1/2 millimeter when I'm finished and everything would still look just about right. I'm always encouraging you guys to get right back on the horse and try again. I'm gonna go do that right now. In the meantime, here's some other stuff I've learned on the project. Throughout the project, I was coping with some changes to the main board. Winston and I were chatting about the factors at hand. First off, by running that initial surfacing pass, I removed the factory coating. This exposed the board to the moisture level of my shop, which is probably different than wherever it was manufactured. The easy remedy for this is to run a facing path, then allow the board to sit for 2 to 3 days and adjust to the moisture level of your shop. You can then run a second facing pass and begin your project. Now additionally, during the project, each time a carve is made and a plug is glued in, that glue introduces additional moisture to the board. That moisture causes even greater surface changes. Therefore, once the glue dried for each plug, I surface back to 0.25 millimeters above my stock top. Leaving any previous plug that 1/4 millimeter high did not affect any of my subsequent plugs, and it kept me from cutting into my board blank surface. Looking at my final cohesive workflow, keep in mind that that first facing path and the waiting period are optional. The board changes we're talking about are very small. I hope by laying this out, you're ahead of the game for your own project. Clamps or weights will be utilized throughout a project depending upon the plug size and location. No matter what you do, save a position inside Carbide Motion to which your main board can be returned. We have a video on that topic. Combine the knowledge in that video as well as here to make yourself better at CNC. A stiff brush and a utility knife are a must. Cleaning the plugs and the V-Carve so they mate perfectly is part of the program. As you dial in your cutting recipe for your particular materials, I'm sure the cleanup times can be reduced. Even then, make sure your mating surfaces are free of debris before gluing them up. When you're making your plugs, do not forget to flip your art because you will forget to flip your art. I know I did. Another rage-inducing moment. On round 1, you will make some mistakes and firewood. You've already seen me dealing with this issue. Be mentally prepared and experiment. Also remember to have fun. The creative process is most creative when you are enjoying it. On any project, save yourself from a complete rebuild. Leave checkpoints outside the main design. I do this constantly. Here's my real file for this project. I copy, paste, and save elements along the way. These are my checkpoints, just like a video game. I don't want to return to the absolute beginning of a level when I die. I went through several different methods of healing the mistakes that were on this board versus carving them out and doing a whole new plug. The best thing I came up with was super glue mixed with super fine dust that color matched. So I used a file and I ground up some walnut, mixed it with the super glue, and puttied that back into my project. That produced seamless results in some cases, in other cases a little bit less. But I was getting better at the process, and on board number 2, I won't have to do as much, and I'll be better at this little healing trick. After all the rounds of cut, glue, face, I finally have a completed project. I'm super stoked on the results and know I can get here 60% faster next time. The board is headed for use in my own home, and maybe I'll even spend some time cutting... No, I won't. No. This is usually the part of the video where I say we'll be back with more information, ideas, and inspiration, which we will. But if you made it this far, I thought we'd give you a little bonus. Here's the entire project in 3 minutes. I hope this gets you excited for your own.